Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. Let's talk about AEW Dynamite. Do we got to? Yes, we do. All right. News and notes for AEW Dynamite. All right. Let's start off with some light news. Jack Evans announced that his contract will not be renewed. Jack Evans did literally nothing in AEW. He, like so many other guys, I kind of forgot was even under contract. It just is what it is. There's no big loss for AEW. It was kind of silly for him to still be there. His contract doesn't end until the end of April anyway, so there that go. So let's talk about Tony Khan, and he's back with his army of bots. Now he's looking to prove that the bots are real. So from April 20th, Wrestling Inc. says, Tony Khan has hired IT experts to look into anti-AEW bots on Twitter. Good Lord, man. Oh, Jesus, man. Tony Khan says, quote, what I've seen was a lot of anti-AEW accounts that are really focused on the things they don't like. A lot of those are legitimate things. Some of those points I'm trying to address. Some of them I don't agree with. But the point is a lot of these people are the same people. There are a handful of accounts that are being run by a few people running a lot of accounts. Those are real people. A lot of their engagement, their retweets, likes, people responding and signal boosting for what they are saying, those are bots. You got a network of a few people with a bunch of identities powered by a bunch of bots. I'm not making this up. I have hired IT experts that put together a much more sophisticated explanation that I'm capable of giving. It's a real thing, or I wouldn't have brought it up. I have a pretty good reputation in this business for honesty. Good Lord. Now he went from an independent study, which we could look up if we only knew what the study was called, who actually did it, who funded it, etc., but we didn't get that information. Now we got IT guys. We got Tony Khan's crack team of tech investigators rooting through all of the AEW accounts, all the AEW hate accounts to see if they're really bots. I think we've had this discussion before. It's clear that some people have more than one account for different reasons. People have different accounts for different reasons. Yes, some of these accounts are some of the same people, but it's not a lot of them. You know, some people might have 2 or 3 accounts, maybe because the account continues to get locked. These accounts are often the targets of harassment. The AEW botches account, for instance, is almost always a target for harassment and copyright and all that kind of stuff, right? It's almost always being attacked for that. So he might have a backup account for that very reason. You know, that kind of stuff is pretty normal. Like I said before, you have people who have more than one Twitter account. But to say that all of these people are bots, it's ridiculous. Some people don't, they have one account and they tweet on their one account. And that's it. He is dead set on proving that there is this army of bots out to get AEW. It's like, no, Tony, understand there are some people who don't like your product. And they really don't like your product mainly because your fans are so smug that people like taking the piss. That's really the problem. Most people probably wouldn't even watch AEW. They just gleefully not watch it. But since the fan base is so smug and hoity-toity, yes, people do enjoy taking the piss out of them. They do. And I've seen people say as much, that they enjoy just basically screwing around with AEW. Hell, some of them even like AEW and will rip it apart just to bother the fan base who is, the cultish fan base. That's just kind of how it is. You have to understand that just because people don't like you doesn't mean that they're not real. The idea that they're bots is absolutely insane. Somebody needs to get in his ear and tell him to stop talking about bots. Leave it alone. Stop doing it. It makes you look insane. It makes you look ridiculous, to be quite honest. It makes you look thin-skinned, pathetic, small. It's all right. Just take the criticism. Or if you really feel like these are bots, why are you even paying attention to them? If I get responded to by egg, first name, bunch of numbers, I'm not going to respond because I don't know who that person is, and I'm guessing that person is they're throwing out bait to get a reaction. And Tony Khan is out here selling. I mean, he's Ricky Morton at this point. He's looking at the crowd like, please believe me. Please believe me. They're bots. And everybody else is like, Tony, shut up. At this point, bro, we don't even care if there are bots. Just stop whining. Make your show, bro. Make your show. And just, let's be done with it. So Tony is ridiculous. All right, one last thing on news and notes before we get forward. It seems to me that I'm not the only one who's noticed how expensive AEW Dynamite is. Eric Bischoff also noticed. So this is very cool. Bischoff was asked about whether the merger, the Warner Brothers Discovery, what they might think about AEW. And he says, basically, there's no way of knowing how much money AEW brings in. There's just no way of knowing. So he says, no way of knowing. And again, I hear so much, I read so much from dirt sheet writers and people. There's no way of knowing. And here's what I can say. You can't just look at the average million viewers that AEW gives or takes. They're steady, holding a course at about 1 million viewers a week. That's pretty cool and usually ends up in the top 5 on Wednesdays. Yay, team. Hey, we're doing great on Wednesday night prime time on cable television. But what does it mean in terms of dollars? That depends on who's advertising on the show. Are those premium dollars? Are those high CPM cost per $1,000 from advertisers that are looking specifically at the demographic and the socioeconomic demographic of the people that are watching that show? Right now, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm taking some comfort in knowing that they're cutting costs. They will want to save money, and historically Discovery and Zaslav have focused on non-scripted programming. That's good news. But going back to AEW, as well as WWE, because the same is true for both companies, their value is directly related to the revenue they're generating. We don't know how much money AEW is generating. That's a secret. We don't know. Nobody reports on it. Nobody speculates on it. Later he says, my guess is the cost of producing that show when they're having to travel and do it live. I would be shocked if they were able to produce that show for less than $450,000 an episode. That doesn't include talent. I'm talking about producing the show. There's half that $865,000 a week. Now you've got to throw talent on top of that. Now you've got to throw travel on top of that. Now you've got to throw a lot of things on top of that. So it's hard to say whether AEW is profitable or not. I don't know. In terms of how does TBS look at Dynamite, that all depends on how they're doing with their advertising. Are they getting premium ad dollars or are they getting mid-tier ad dollars? Are they getting opportunistic buys? So since none of us know that, AEW could be over-delivering to TBS on those expectations or they could be under-delivering. What are they getting for that prime-time real estate? Are they getting premium ad dollars like they would if they had a beautiful home on it? Or are they just getting by because they've got a mobile home on a beautiful piece of property? It's the ad dollars that AEW is generating that is going to become one of, not the determining factor. Nobody that's watching that show, that's writing about it, talking about it, has any fucking clue what those numbers are. Therein lies one of the key factors in what happens to AEW. So here he's talking about the long and the short of it, even though I read the entire quote and even though I didn't intend to. I just felt like he was on a roll and it was best to just let it go. But the ad revenue, obviously, we've talked about that before in terms of on this channel when we talk about the business of the business. We do talk about the avenue, the demographics, and that sort of thing. And Tony Khan has touted the demographics that they have a younger demographic than WWE and other wrestling promotions, that they have a more wealthy demographic and have a better educated demographic. Their demographic is also widely male and white at a time where, let's just be honest, it's not the best to be white and male. You know, that's just being real. You know, When you turn around, and not to get too political, but when you turn around and the white man is to blame for everything on planet Earth, even white women are blaming white men for everything that has ever gone wrong in anybody's life. Is it really a good idea to have all of the people who are watching your show? Well, not all of them. Most of the people who are watching your show to be white males. Is that the best idea? When you have most companies who are running commercials with dumb white dads or interracial couples, and usually the white man is some idiot, or the white man is a rapist or a home burglar or some nonsense like that, is it really the best to have white males as your target audience? Is that really the best idea? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. I'm not even saying that that's entirely a bad thing. I think that, whoever pays is great to have. Come on board. You're paying money. I don't have a problem with white dudes, but the advertising industry does. I've seen marketing for the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah, they are supremely anti-white male. And that's Tony Khan's major demographic. So you have to ask the question, what is going on with their advertising and how does that look? That's a good question. But I think the big thing is we're talking about the amount that it costs to produce the show. Now, he's not mentioning talent. He starts talking about the production. He's talking about pyro, the music, traveling from town to town. And Tony I've heard from Jericho, he's actually paying for a lot of those people to come in. Now, I heard on Dark they're paying for themselves, so I guess Dark has different rates or something like that, where I guess it's the unsigned talent are paying for themselves to come in. They're paying for the opportunity, so they're driving up or whatever, flying themselves in if they have to. But a lot of the top stars in AEW are getting the gold star treatment. They're getting put up in hotels and all that kind of stuff. Just stuff Jericho claims Vince never does for anybody, even though he gave, Brock Lesnar a private jet to fly to Saudi Arabia and back. So that kind of stuff, that stuff does get expensive. And even though everybody's going to say, Tony Khan has endless amounts of money, Tony Khan ain't spending his own money on this. Not yet. He spent his own money to start this. I doubt he's spending his own money to keep this thing going on. Eventually, every company is going to have a budget. Every football team has a budget. Every Microsoft, Amazon, they all have budgets for this sort of thing. Eventually, AEW is going to hit up a price point where they're going to reach it's going to be beyond the pale. They're not even going to understand the purpose of paying for this stuff anymore. Bischoff also criticized AEW recently for not locking down intellectual property. Now, they did get he got a lot of pushback on this, but I'm not going to read the article because I'm just going to continue with it. Bischoff says that Tony Khan should be kicking himself in the balls for allowing WWE to get their hands on the intellectual property that is the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and that AEW should have locked that up. And he says when you look at with guys like Jericho, everything that they create in AEW, they're trademarking it for themselves so that they can take it and go other places with it. Now, a lot of fans are saying, and I'm putting fans in quotations. You can't see my hands, so I gotta remember that. They think, the guys should be able to take their thing and go somewhere else and do it. It's like, to a degree, yes, but it's bad business. To be quite honest, this is how independent contractors work. A lot of people seem to think that, they don't understand the concept of employee and independent contractor. They don't get it. Anything that is created while you are under contract to a parent company is the ownership of that company. So Bill Gates didn't create, Microsoft. No, let's do Steve Jobs instead. Steve Jobs didn't create the iPhone. Some engineer somewhere in some corner office created the iPhone. But since he used Apple's resources to create the iPhone, Apple created the iPhone. They own it. The guy who created actually put together the iPhone, and he probably was part of a team, to be quite honest, that put together the iPhone. It does not own the iPhone. He doesn't. He can't just go to Microsoft or Amazon and make new iPhones. He can't do that. It's the intellectual property of Apple. He can't use it. He can't do that. And that's how companies prevent other companies from monetizing their intellectual property. So what Eric Bischoff is looking at is saying that Tony Khan created and helped cultivate the intellectual property that was the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. And now Cody just looked at it and says, I own this thing. I'm just going to take it over here. And then he did. And now WWE is reaping the rewards of all the Tony Khan's hard work. That he's the one who invested all kind of time and money and effort in nurturing Cody and nurturing that brand and really hyping up the American Nightmare and keeping it loud and in public. And now Cody just takes it and goes off and does something else with it. And that's something to consider, no matter which side of the fence you sit on. That's something to consider. You know, because he talked about this in the context of Brian Breaker and in the context of WWE not calling him Braun Steiner or Rex Steiner or whatever. Because he says, there's always the opportunity that Brian Breaker becomes a huge star and then has a falling out with WWE. So then what happens? If you build up the name Rex Steiner and there's a falling out for whatever purpose, and he just takes Rex Steiner and goes to AEW with it, you're aiding. They're going to benefit from all of the intellectual property that you built up, all of the goodwill that you built up with the name Rex Steiner, his face on posters and everything. Now that you can't change. Like, you can't change if he's his face on stuff, but you can kind of obscure things a little bit with he can't use the name, right? So basically, Eric Bischoff is saying there needs to be some way of you protecting yourself from guys using your company to build their brand and then skating. Like MJF, for instance, who is doing exactly that. Now, some of the smarter wrestling fans have said this is what wrestlers do. They go into a territory, they make their name, and then they pack up their act and they go to a different town. And it's like, yes, and that's why Vince was able to put so many people out of business. One, Vince creates things. He doesn't just use other people's stuff. Second, he will use other people's stuff if they're stupid enough to let him do so. And most of the time, they are stupid enough to let him do so. And the opposite is not true. Bill Watts created the Junkyard Dog. Everything about the Junkyard Dog was created by Bill Watts, with the exception of Sylvester Ritter, right? Everything else was created by Bill Watts. Bill Watts did not stop the Junkyard Dog from taking that name, the likeness, the chain, the thump, everything, and taking it to WWF. He made a lot of money, but he fucked Bill Watts doing it. So that's just kind of how it is. And when you think about it in the long term, it might have been the right thing that Bill Watts didn't trademark the name Junkyard Dog and say that, you could take Sylvester Ritter, but you can't take the Junkyard Dog because, that name belongs to me. That might have been great for Sylvester Ritter at that time, but look at how terrible it was for Mid-South in the long term because they lost their biggest star, and then their biggest star was coming back, name biggest ever on a goddamn poster next to Hulk Hogan. I mean, you got to think about these things in more than one way. It's not just a wrestler versus company concept. It's also, it could at some point become a situation where the company is trying to stay alive. The company is fighting to prevent other companies from benefiting from the things that they did. And that's something to consider too. All right, so let us talk about AEW Dynamite now. Let's do it now. Why don't we? First match, CM Punk versus Dustin Rhodes. This match was okay. It was just okay. I thought it was too long. I think they did 20 minutes to these two guys. I don't know why this match had to be 20 minutes. I just don't. I looked at the clock. It might have been 50. It might have been like 17 or 18 minutes or something like that. But it felt like it dragged at certain points. Look, I know Dustin's of an advanced age, but CM Punk also is not the quickest on his feet these days. I think they had a good match, but I don't think they had the match that they could have had. And I definitely think 10 or 15 years ago, they would have had a real banger. But now they just kind of had a good match. CM Punk was confronted by Hangman Page after the match. Didn't mean much of anything. They just kind of stared at each other. And CM Punk nodded at Hangman as if he was in approval of Hangman getting in his face. Hangman. Boy. I don't like that guy. I went from not really caring about Hangman to just like, I don't like him. I just don't like him. He's not doing it for me, man. It's not working. I think that we've reached the point where I just kind of just have to shrug my shoulders and be like, it is what it is. And I know that people are going to give me shit about this, but this is kind of how it was about AJ Styles when I first started watching TNA. And I was just like watching him, and I was like, oh, he's a good wrestler, but I don't like this guy. I just don't like him. There's just something about him I don't like. Maybe it's the blandness. It's like he's blandly okay. Like, oh, is he going to have a good match? Yeah. But do I care? No, not really. Do I need to clamor to see it? No. I'll see it when I see it. And even when I watch old TNA pay-per-views on like YouTube and stuff, which everybody should be doing, I still feel the same way about AJ Styles when I watch his matches. I'm kind of like, damn, AJ is great. I just don't care. It's like, it's just athletics, Like, it's great when I want to watch something. I just want to watch the guy do a backflip into a slot drop with the old school Scorpion Death Drop. I mean, that's cool. I want to watch a spiral tap from the top of a cage or something like that. That's fucking cool. But promos, Flash, no, it's just, and he's just bland like that. Maybe Hangman has to grow into the role, but maybe we should have made him grow into the role before we gave him the belt. Whatever. Wardlow appeared. Mark Sterling told him he would have to be escorted around the arena in handcuffs, and he has to have security follow him around everywhere he goes. He made a couple little jokes here and there. I'm still not used to hearing Wardlow's voice because I was like, who is that talking? They're trying to give us Batista vibes with Wardlow. And I feel the Diet Batista vibes from him. I'll give them the credit for that. I'll give them the Diet Batista vibes. So, Diet Batista, Wardlow, defeated the Butcher because of course he did. MJF started this match by standing on the empty spot of the arena and yelling at the audience about, hey, you can boo me if you want. I see what you cheer. You cheer that piggy Wardlow. Then said that Wardlow cannot have theme music. He doesn't deserve theme music. So Wardlow just had to come to the ring handcuffed. They had to uncuff his hands so he could wrestle the match, which of course made no sense. He should have wrestled the match handcuffed. Why not? MJF makes the rules, right? Why not? But I guess it's, AEW at that point. Butcher and Wardlow have a short match in which Wardlow powerbombs Butcher a bunch of times. Wardlow then is escorted from the ring after beating the tar out of Butcher. That was fine. It was what it needed to be. It probably could have been shorter, but it was what it needed to be. Later, MJF was pretty upset, but says, no big deal. He still has more money. He is basically a cartoon villain. He's basically Skeletor at this point. It's like, no, my plan, it's been ruined. What else I got to do? You come do my bidding. And that's basically what he does now is come do my bidding. So now he says he has more money. He says that why would people call him? He calls himself a snake. He says all it takes is one bite. And he has money and he gives money to Jake the Snake Roberts. And Jake the Snake Roberts' voice is so shot that I have no earthly idea what he was talking about in that promo. I would have had to rerun that promo 4 times to get it, what he was saying. His sandpaper-like voice was so old and rickety. I'm talking, it was so old and Western, I thought a gunfight was about to break out. I thought tumbleweed was about to go by. I had no earthly fucking idea what Jake Roberts was talking about. He's like, it's for children. I'm like, what? What the fuck? And then out of nowhere, Lance Archer says he doesn't care about money. He just wants to fight Wardlow. And I was like, okay, I get it. I mean, I got it before that, but I don't know what... Jake Roberts was trying to set the scene. But Lance Archer, being awful that he is, of course, he just busted in the scene and ruined it. All right, Lance Archer versus Wardlow, that doesn't sound no fun. That sounds like it sucks, actually. But whatever. The Blackpool Combat Club defeated Brock Anderson, Dante Martin, and Lee Moriarty. You would AEW literally has Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson doing 6-man tags. It got to the point, really, I kind of forgot Bryan Danielson was Bryan Danielson, you know? I was just kind of like looking at this guy as he was wrestling these lightweights. And I was just like, man, this guy could be doing anything and he wanted in the world. He could be wrestling anybody he wanted. Not just, he could have wrestled at WrestleMania a couple of weeks ago. That's not what I really was thinking. I was thinking he could have been in Japan killing it. He could have been doing anything. He could be at the top of this card in this company killing it. Tony Khan books him to be in 6-man tags. Look, this is the part of the show where a lot of the AEW faithful get into the comment section and start calling me a hater. But I'm telling you, Keith Lee, Tony Storm, Jeff Hardy, all 3 of them are fairly new to this roster. All 3 of them was on Dark recently, or Dark Elevation, one of the 2. I don't give a fuck what the reasoning was. I don't care that they're trying to help the young talent. None of that shit fucking matters. Why are you paying people to wrestle on a YouTube show? What is the point of you having all of these people only for you to dump them on the YouTube show? WWE isn't even stupid enough to do it. They're not even dumb enough to do shit like that. Now, they did put Jeff Hardy... They had a run of Jeff Hardy on main event. Him and Ricochet. They had a bunch of matches on main event. Mustafa Ali was on main event. And everybody had an absolute meltdown because Jeff Hardy was on main event. People were having a fit because Jeff Hardy was on main event. Here he is on Dark Elevation in an 8-man tag. I'm just thinking, like, this is what we paid for this guy to do? You have to think about this for a minute. All right? Again, this man runs a football team. You mean to tell me he's going to go out and get some of the best wide receivers and running backs in the world and say, that's on my practice squad? They're going to help my practice. They're going to help, the practice squad get their levels up. We're going to put Bryan Danielson with Wheeler Yuta to get his levels up. And I'm just going to look at that shit and be like, Danielson is 38 or something like that. In 5 years, he's going to be ready to go. All right. And you're going to be thinking like, hey, for like 4 months, I had him locked up in this thing with Wheeler Yuta that, probably is not going to be fruitful in the long term. Look, I'm just being honest. I don't see any money in Wheeler Yuta. If it was Danielson or Danielson with somebody who had a future, then maybe. But Wheeler Yuta, come on. Are you fucking serious? I don't see that. I think it's a waste of guys' time. He's winning matches. He's beating up guys. I mean, that's great. More power to you. But it's a real waste of his talent. It is. And it seemed like they didn't have a second idea. After a great match with Omega, it was kind of like, okay, we'll just put him against Hangman, because Hangman needs to beat somebody. So there that goes. And then after you have those matches, it was like, well, we don't have another idea. We don't know what to do. It's like you have a million fucking guys on this roster that he could be working with. Especially if you wanted to push some young guys. There's some young guys on the roster that he could be working with. They might have something. Wheeler Yuta ain't one of them. I just don't see that. But whatever. I mean, it's a moot point. Not worth arguing because, a lot of people are going to get really upset at me. But Tony Storm having one match on Dynamite, that was banned 3 weeks ago. And then she's now wrestling on Dark. silly. It's a waste of money. But a fool and his money will soon be parted. So let's talk about the Undisputed Elite. All right, so this is a little bit edited. We're going to try to run through this really quickly without spending too much time on it. I was asked by a subscriber named DMAC to take a look at the Wrestlenomics chart of whether AEW is growing. Now, I am very suspicious of Wrestlenomics, mainly because they have a habit of trying to lie with statistics. And they put out information that is context free, and which is a problem. And that's what this chart is. This chart is absolutely context free. This does not tell you when certain big signings occurred. You just are left to guess when the big signings occurred. Most of it is not raw numbers. It is percentages. To give you a good example of how you can lie via statistics, you could tell people you're doing very well. Like I could look at my channel and say my channel is doing great. I went from having 10 views to having 100 views. And some people will be like, you know what? That's great for you, but 100 views still is not that good. You know, your channel is still small and poor. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm growing. I feel better about myself. It's like, yeah, sure. Maybe you should, you know, I did 10 times the normal amount of views I would have gotten this time last year. And, you know, that's a good thing, but that growth, while good, is context free. What did I do differently? What is, you know, did something change that in that year, or did the content get better? We don't exactly know. Now, we do know that AEW made a couple of really big acquisitions in 2021, and that's where you see a lot of the big growth. For instance, you look at the AEW Dynamite TV viewership. In 2021, you got the first quarter was 775, second quarter 793, third quarter 1104, which means 1.1 million, and Q4 896. So it went down 200,000 viewers. So Q3 2021, what happened? Danielson and CM Punk, Adam Cole, they all joined AEW at the same time. Also, Q3 2021, NXT moved to Tuesdays. So when you look at 2021, you'll see that as far as the TV ratings are concerned, it was at a negative 12%, then 12%, then up 32% in Q3 2021. Well, CM Punk came in, Bryan Danielson came in, Adam Cole came in. Remember, this was like a month apart that these guys all came in at the same time, in the same quarter, essentially. So Tony Khan spent a ton of money in Q 2021 and got a big return on it. And by that, I mean, I think it was it was late August. So August, well, I don't know when the fiscal year, and that's another thing that I'm kind of missing here, is these quarterly breakdowns are done by quarter. So when does the quarter start? Does it start January the 1st? And when does the quarter end? You know, so that's just one of those things that we're looking at here. Again, context free. It needs to be more explained to people who need more information in order to understand this chart. Because if I tell you WWE did something in Q 2020, you know, Q1 2021, WWE is going to define what that is, because they're going to have all of these events are punctuated by a Big Four pay-per-view. So I think Q1 is after the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is Q1, and then SummerSlam is Q2, then Survivor Series is Q3, and then Royal Rumble is Q4. I think that's how it works for WWE. That would be different for AEW. It's like it's different from all companies, but we're not told that here. We don't know what's fiscal year for AEW. We have no idea. But we're looking at it, and you can look at it and see that the numbers have increased. Some of it by pretty good proportions. Their P 18 to 49 has gone up since CM Punk came in, plus 33% in Q3 2021. It was at a negative 1 in Q4. Now it's up 28% in Q1 2022. But those numbers still aren't, they're doing pretty good and they're regularly number one on cable television. But this goes back to what Bischoff was saying about, what kind of revenue are they bringing in? That's another growth potential that we're talking about here. We're not just talking about TV and social media and ticket sales and stuff like that. Are they being able to bring in better ad dollars? But this chart is very interesting. So we look at the pay-per-view buys, and pay-per-view buys is very interesting because I look at the source for their pay-per-view buys, and I see that the source is Wrestlenomics. Well, unless Wrestlenomics hosted a pay-per-view, how the hell do they know what the buys were for any AEW pay-per-view? How do they know? Because if the source was Fight TV, or if the source was Bleacher Report, why wouldn't they put source Bleacher Report, source All Elite Wrestling, if they got it from Tony Khan? This company is a private company. They don't have to disclose their business practices as far as how much money they made or how many tickets were sold. Well, tickets sold and all that kind of stuff will become public information anyway. But pay-per-view buys has to be culled from a lot of different sources. And unless Wrestlenomics can source every digit that they got, how do they know what the buys were? How do they know? And if they got sourcing from somebody else, they should put that and it shouldn't say source Wrestlenomics. It shouldn't say that. Clearly we know that their pay-per-view buy rates have skyrocketed due to the changing of their roster. So the roster increased with talent. Punk was there. Then you had Danielson. Then you had Adam Cole. Then you had a bunch of other people come in. And All Out, Full Gear, and Revolution all had increases. So that's good. That's impressive. The YouTube views went up. This is pretty obvious. YouTube views, they can't really lie about this. YouTube actually shows the views on the screen. So that huge jump in 2021 when it comes to CM Punk coming back, and that was good. That was important. But their worldwide Google trends, of course, skyrocketed Q3 2021 from 7.0 in Q2 2021 to 14.4 in Q3 2021. Well, what happened? Well, CM Punk signed a contract. First time in 7 years he has signed a contract. That's an 84% increase. And it went down the next quarter, down to 9.6%. But then it went back up at 11.5% because Daddy Khan started spending that money again. He started bringing in some of the big stars again. Jeff Hardy came in, and Keith Lee, and some other guys he spent money on had come in. Sting came in at one point here, but I don't remember what year that was. I think it was 2021, early 2020. So, or early 2021. So, but you can look at it, the raw numbers, and the raw numbers says that AEW is growing. That's what the raw numbers is. Well, not the raw numbers, but the percentages are. Now, how you lie with percentages is, again, if you have 5 of a thing and you say it increased by 50%, it's not going to take you to 500. So it's not going to take you that far, but you can go up to 10 or 15 and get a nice little chunk and get a nice little green box on your chart, but it still doesn't tell you that much about, whether you are successful or not in terms of making money. And then when you talk about making money, you also talk about spending money. And like I mentioned already in this thing, AEW spent a lot of money. They've been spending money to make money. And they've been doing so, I wouldn't say smartly, but they've been spending money to make money. And also they don't mention Rampage at all on this Wrestlenomics chart. Rampage is not on here at all. There is no Rampage at all on here. Now that's an interesting That's an interesting way to tell the story of whether AEW is growing, isn't it? By completely and totally ignoring Rampage. Rampage doesn't exist. It was all a figment of our imagination, according to Wrestlenomics. And that's why I don't trust them. But hopefully this gives you guys an idea of the kind of shit Wrestlenomics puts out there. The Elite, they're pretty dour. They were backstage upset. Kyle O'Reilly called everybody up and said he needed to turn it around. It's like he's going to whip Jungle Boy's ass. Cole says that as a team, they can't be stopped, even though they all lost in their respective matches. Young Bucks lost to FTR, and Red Dragon lost to Jurassic Express, and he lost to Hangman. But together, they can beat anybody. So they had an open challenge for a 10-man tag against any 5 guys anywhere on planet Earth. And these guys, I looked at this and I just shook my head. I say, man, look, I don't care about this. I don't care about this at all. I couldn't give a shit less. So they did the Owen Hart tournament qualifier, Kyle O'Reilly versus Jungle Boy. Be honest, this was not a bad match, but it was super fucking boring. Technically, the match was good, but the match was boring. If you are into good counter holds and stuff like that, you probably enjoyed this match. If you are kind of like, hey, can somebody do something, with some charisma? No. Can somebody have some flash? Could it be some sizzle? No, that's not Kyle O'Reilly. And this is why Kyle O'Reilly is perfect Ring of Honor champion. Charismaless, colorless, joyless. I'm just like, oof. I did like that Jungle Boy does that little lucha spot when he bounces off the ropes. I like that Kyle O'Reilly countered that into an armbar. That's the only thing in the match I really care for. I like the snare trap false finish too. That was not bad. But I was absolutely kind of like good match, but crowd went to sleep on it, and I was like, man, this is when the show started to drag. I was like, oh boy, Mr. Excitement, Kyle O'Reilly. All right. Samoa Joe and Jay Lethal traded verbal jabs. Samoa Joe says, oh, yes, with Sanjay Dutt on your side and that big man behind you, you feel like you're tough. You feel safe. Feeling like you can't be touched. Then Sanjay Dutt absolutely blew my mind by saying that for over a decade, he was the best wrestler India ever produced. And Satnam Singh will continue that legacy. I almost turned my fucking TV off. You know that, man, look, I don't care what you say about Sanjay Dutt. Sanjay Dutt is the shits. All right? He was always sort of that TNA guy. Like, I knew I was watching TNA when Sanjay Dutt appeared. Like, I couldn't imagine that guy working literally anywhere else. I'm pretty sure he did. I'm pretty sure he worked all over the world. But I knew I was watching TNA when I saw Sanjay Dutt. Because I looked at it and I was like, nobody else will hire this mega mind looking motherfucker except TNA. A guy who can't talk, a guy who can only wrestle and then not even stand out while doing that, a guy who can't really cut promos, a guy with no character and no personality whatsoever outside of I'm Indian. I'm sorry. Fuck Sanjay Dutt. It's been like what the fuck? What am I going to be so excited about Sanjay Dutt for? Can we just get to the Samoa Joe Jay Lethal match, please? I would like to get to that. All right, so Tony Khan had his mega announcement, which was done in extremely cringe fashion. He came out personally to make this announcement, and Adam Cole stole his thunder by announcing that they're going to do a joint pay-per-view with New Japan Pro Wrestling called The Forbidden Door. Because guys like him made this possible. And he's going to be wrestling Tomohiro Ishii. Tomohiro Ishii has the charisma of a cupboard. That guy fucking sucks. Of all the people I've been sitting here talking about this kind of shit. All these guys who are just blandly competent wrestlers who don't stand out in the crowd. Who the fuck cares about Tomohiro Ishii? Don't get in my comment section talking about Stone Pitbull, man. He's so tough. Fuck him. He's garbage. Over under, he throws 24 forearm shivers in the first 5 minutes of that match. Over or under, I guarantee you it goes over. He fucking sucks, and every match is the same. I don't care about this fucking guy. And plus, they kind of spoiled it being New Japan anyway by, Minoru Suzuki and a bunch of other Japanese fucks being on Dark. Jay White made an appearance, and he basically just showed up so he wouldn't get fined. Because that crowd likes him, and he didn't have anything really to add to the subject other than he's going to be hanging out with the Undisputed Elite, and they're still doing Bullet Club stuff. And so I'm in this situation looking now like, man, Bullet Club is 10 years old. And you still got people out here chanting for Bullet Club and doing Bullet Club shit. I'm sorry, Bullet Club sucks. They suck. I dare one of them to get some charisma. Jay White is the only one in the entire fucking group that has any sort of charisma. And I like GOD though. But I think JOD had been excommunicated in accordance with their storyline with Impact, which I don't know where that storyline went. That's the thing about crossovers. You're getting people invested in something, and you're telling them they have to follow it by watching something else. It's the same thing in comics. Like, we're going to do this big Spider-Man Daredevil crossover. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but now you have to buy Daredevil if you don't want to. You're like, wait a minute. Now you have to buy Spider-Man if you don't want to. You're like, wait a minute. In order to know where this storyline is going, I have to buy both books. But what if I don't like Spider-Man? What if I like Spider-Man and Daredevil together, but I don't really like Spider-Man, or I really don't like Daredevil? But the enticing part is the two coming together. Comics learned the hard way about that kind of shit. When all the tie-ins started to flop. They still do it for no reason, but it is what it is. Where were I going with that? Oh yeah, the New Japan thing, as much as people are trying to act like this is revolutionary, almost everybody has some sort of deal with overseas promotions. ECW did it. TNA did it. TNA had extensive organizations with AAA and New Japan, almost exactly the same organizations that AEW are working with. And people are like, yay, the wrestling companies are working together for the first time. I'm like, what are you talking about? WCW literally gave New Japan half a Starrcade once. Like, there's literally a New Japan versus WCW Starrcade. They did joint shows all the time. They did that joint show in Korea. This whole thing with the secondary wrestling promotion wanting to work with Japan, come on. This shit has been done forever. It's been done to death. It's been done to death. It's not going to be anything special. It's going to be people who wrestle in Japan, wrestling people who wrestle in Japan. And the people who are going to watch it, who are going to be interested, the only people who are going to be interested are the people who watch Japanese pro wrestling. And I think ultimately that's all that matters to them, is that particular audience. The people who know about the Okada Omega storyline, or the Okada Omega, or are really super excited about the concept of Punk versus Omega, or Punk versus Okada, or something like that. The average Joe doesn't know who these people are. They don't know. They don't know who Tomohiro Ishii is. They don't know who Shingo Takagi is. They don't know who Evil is. They don't know who Hiromu Takahashi is. They don't care. They don't know, and they don't care. You're not going to give them any reason to care. Because your idea is these people are already huge stars, and they're already international stars. And I saw a wrestling journalist say that. Oh, they're going to build their fan base internationally. I say, what the fuck are you talking about? If you are a Japanese wrestling fan, and you were likely a fan of Kenny Omega, or the Young Bucks, or Bullet Club, you're already watching AEW. You're already watching it. If you are already a Japanese wrestling fan, hey, all of the marks of your home promotion are in AEW. Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, Kyle O'Reilly, all those guys. Some of them are in Impact, but a lot of them are in AEW already. So you're probably already watching that. So you're not really gaining any new viewers. And sometimes, and I think that these people, of course, they're just saying it because they run defense for AEW. But you have to consider, are you really trying to reach a new audience with this sort of thing? Or is it, I mean, it's okay for you not to, you know, not everything is for everybody. That's my thing. You know, when WWE runs shit like wedding angles and people are like, who is this stuff for? And then you find out that there is some pocket of society that really likes this kind of shit. And then they go out, they search out and find it and find this. And this is the greatest thing in the world to them. You're like, wow, okay, it's not for me. And that's kind of how the New Japan stuff is. They build it up as this big, huge thing. And then the bulk of their audience or the bulk of the wrestling landscape is going to look at it and be like, oh, okay. It's guys I've seen before versus guys I've seen before. You know, like, oh, okay, sure. New Japan used to run joint shows at Ring of Honor all the time. Okay, whatever. Oh, they want to run it in Chicago. Okay, sure, whatever. Whatever. I don't, it's not a bad thing. But it ain't necessarily a good one. That's the problem, you know. It's just kind of like it was expected, you know. It's everybody tries to buddy up with New Japan for a while, and it almost never works. I mean, even Vince did it for a while, you know, palling around with New Japan. It just doesn't work long term. But whatever. Moving on, the baddies section: Jade, Red Velvet, and Kiera Hogan. They were booing Marina Shafir. And Jade called herself the problem solver again. Still no explanation about why Jade Cargill is hanging out with Red Velvet. It's just no. We're not going to get one, are we? Is that going to be like my Finn Balor top rope thing in AEW? And I'm going to have to say every single week that somebody has to explain why Jade Cargill and Red Velvet, who are mortal fucking enemies, are now best friends. And why is Red Velvet's personality completely changed all of a sudden? Like her heel turn literally came out of nowhere. We've been building up Julia Hart's heel turn for 5 fucking months to the point where they literally doing something else. But Red Velvet's heel turn, literally on a dime. She was a babyface last time I saw her, and then now she's a heel. Like, whatever, man. Doesn't make no sense. Eddie Kingston challenged Daniel Garcia, and the Cruz will not be available to be in the building. He says that everything he does to Garcia will be for Jericho. He's going to make an example out of Garcia. Okay. If he says so. Hook defeated Anthony Henry. This match was short and sweet. The crowd ate this up, though. Danhausen once again tried to curse Hook. Hook, of course, cannot be cursed. So Danhausen gets in the ring and says that he's tired of this. And if you can't be cursed by Danhausen, then you will fight Danhausen. And the crowd is just cheering their asses off for this. And that's one positive thing. At least they're into it. At least the fans are into this. I've seen Danhausen wrestle before. He's okay. I don't think he's not really a serious wrestler from my understanding. And considering he's a joke comedy wrestler, he's not really going to be a serious test for Hook. You know, he's going to lose. You know, he's not. They've taken Hook off of a serious track and put him onto a sort of jokey comedy track. I guess he'll swing back around eventually. So Frankie Kazarian showed up, and he challenged Sammy Guevara to a TNT Championship match. Scorpio Sky interrupted and says that he's achieved a lot of success in AEW, but none of that would have been possible without Frankie Kazarian answering his phone 5 or 10 years ago and helping him form SCU. And he's now coming to Frankie Kazarian to ask him for one more favor, to step aside and let him challenge Sammy Guevara for the TNT title. And Kazarian gladly did so. And let's stop and talk about this for a moment, because Frankie Kazarian hasn't been on TV in forever. Now, I have to do it. I hate doing this, but I have to do it. When Jinder Mahal came out of nowhere and was like, I should be the Intercontinental Champion, everybody was like, where the hell Jinder Mahal been? And when was the last time he won a match? And they were correct to do so. Jinder Mahal literally came out of nowhere, had beat nobody, and was, a contender. And now AEW has went and found check notes, Elite Hunter, who has failed to hunt the Elite. He's the worst hunter of all time. He's the Elmer Fudd of Elite Hunters. And he was about to challenge for the TNT title. Now, thankfully, they smartened up and swooshed it back to Scorpio Sky. So this brings us to the talking segment where Sammy Guevara and Ty Conti do a very poor Edge and Lita storyline. Where Sammy Guevara basically says that they love all the people who love them and everybody else who is mad because his girlfriend is hotter than theirs. They can just be mad and they're jealous. This led Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and Dan Lambert to come out there, and now these guys are baby faces. I'll just let that linger. Let that linger a bit. These guys are baby faces. Scorpio Sky says he starts his promo with a babyface promo like, screw us, Sammy, all of us who supported you, who by watching your blog. I was like, what on earth? Now you telling me you a fan? Why? Why are you telling me that you were a fan? You hated the guy 2 weeks ago. You thought he was the shits. Like, I don't understand. It's the suddenness of this stuff, man. Like, we know that the crowd is turning on Sammy. We know that. You know, we know that Sammy is sort of giving them a reason to turn. We know that. We know that the crowd kind of likes Scorpio Sky, or at least they like him enough to cheer him and not Sammy. But we don't have to go full babyface for Scorpio Sky and to get Dan Lambert and these guys, man. It was too much. So Lambert says that he used to respect Sammy Guevara because he would do whatever it takes to get respect out of these people. And he threw it all away. And now his boys are going to give Sammy Guevara the pounding that Tay can only dream of. And Sammy Guevara says that he'll accept the challenge, but he needs to get that mixed tag match first. So, of course, you know, they're like, this is stupid. Of course we'll agree to that. That's dumb. And for somehow, this became a ladder match. I didn't hear the word ladder in this shit at all. I just heard, give us that mixed tag match. And Scorpio Sky or Dan Lambert was like, okay, sure. And now it's like, it's a ladder match for the TNT Championship. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Where do ladders come from? I'm like, whatever. Whatever. House of Black, they cut a promo. They're still talking about Fuego del Sol, apparently. It's like you're talking into the void. I don't know who you're talking to, right? Your promos are so vague. They mention no names, and they're just into the void. Like the old Bray Wyatt promos. We used to wander around talking, man. My mom used to tell me, you gotta eat your cornbread with your oatmeal. I didn't understand it at the time, man. I was like, and people just be confused. Like, yeah, the Bray Wyatt shit, I get it, but is there a point to this? What is that point exactly? You know? And now House of Black is doing the same shit where they're talking about, you know, we said we would turn your eyes black. You know, then they said they changed their narrative. And that the house is owed a debt. And next week the son dies. Or something. I was just kind of looking at this shit like, who are they talking about? I went on Twitter and found out they was talking to Fuego del Sol. I'm like, again? We're still talking to this motherfucker? Why are you talking to people who are not on TV, man? At least NXT had the nerve that when they wanted to have a guy talk nonsense into the camera, there's at least some guy in the ring that we can say, oh yes, he's talking to this guy. Because I have no fucking idea. If you're not following the storyline on Twitter or Dark or whatever, how do you know he's talking to Fuego del Sol? How do you know? How would you know that they're involved with Fuego del Sol unless you look at it on Twitter or something like that? How else would you know? You wouldn't know. They don't mention his fucking name. They don't have a fucking match on TV. Nothing happens. They literally just come out of the dark talking about vagaries about sons and changing narratives and turning eyes black. Like, what the fuck are they talking about? I don't get this. Make it make sense. Focus this shit up. Moving on. Danielle Carmella lost to Britt Baker in the women's Owen Hart joint. Britt Baker, they had her cut a heel promo after the match, despite the fact that she worked babyface. She was so babyface, she had the Pittsburgh Steelers there with her. I'm like, you really shouldn't need to do all of this. It's kind of extra. She even had a Steelers glove to use the lockjaw. Danielle Carmella is Vanessa Bourne, and that's who she was in NXT. Vanessa Bourne was called up and never made it to Raw. She basically just sat at home for a year. The ultimate in disrespect. She literally sat at home for a full year before she was cut. She should be in the baddie section because Vanessa Bourne was hot. And I liked her character, the thing that she was doing. It was kind of like, her and Aaliyah were a little bit like Lay Cool, but a little bit more upscale. And I kind of like that idea. She should be in the baddie section with Jade Cargill. So Britt Baker, she cut a promo after the match saying that the women's division is a disaster without her. And that Ruby Riott comes out there every week, which is a lie because Ruby Riott just never comes out there. And called her a redhead little rascal. Of course, she humiliated Tony Storm by saying if you thought cake in the face was bad enough, wait till what Jamie Hayter does to you. You're going to quit this company too. And that Jade, the baddie section, she's the baddest bitch in the building. And that, all that kind of stuff. So, there that goes. Serena Deeb and Hikaru Shida agreed to a Philly street fight. Apparently, this feud has been going on for 6 months. It feels like it, if we're being honest. It feels like it's been going on for 6 months. Thunder Rosa says that she wants to continue to be in the best, and she's ready to go double or nothing. Who in the world is she going to wrestle, and why would anybody care? I'm guessing she's going to wrestle the winner of this Deeb Shida thing, which is probably going to be Deeb, right? That would be fun. The 7th match, main event, coffin match, Darby Allin versus Andrade. Look at me. Andrade el Idolo. Andrade el Idolo. We're in a weird space here because the match wasn't bad, but it was all shenanigans, you know. There was a bunch of interference. Sting is in disguise in the crowd like he's fucking James Bond or he's in disguise. He's undercover in the crowd. And he beats up Private Party. He no-sells a chair shot. He jumps off the balcony. I mean, they just had Sting doing all the things. Sting doing all kind of crazy stuff. Andrade caught Darby doing a coffin drop into a German suplex. It was absolutely insane. In the end, of course, Darby Allin wins because, of course, he's going to win. All right, so that's Dynamite. Once again, AEW sets up things pretty well at the beginning. Then they lose you somewhere in the middle. Usually a segment or a spot or a match where you just kind of like, oof. To me, it was Kyle O'Reilly and Jungle Boy. I was done right there. By the time Guevara came out there, I was already kind of peaced out. I don't like Guevara already, so they just gave me a reason to peace out. You know, I was kind of like, all right, mentally, I'm checked out. I'm done. I don't want to hear Sammy Guevara. I don't want to talk to him. But talk about him. I'm not jealous of his girlfriend. I don't care that he might have fucked around on Pam. I don't care. You know, a lot of people care about that kind of shit. I don't see why. You know, he's making alpha moves. He's a young kid. He's like, 25, 26. Of course, he's going to go with the hot Brazilian. Brought like she's from somewhere in mid-Utah. Yeah, you're going to go get the hot Brazilian. Wouldn't want to bang the model chick. He was going to bang her one way or the other. Either he was going to marry the fat, homely girl. Well, she wasn't fat. Chubby, homely girl. And fuck the model anyway on the side, or he's going to let the girl go and fuck the model anyway. He's going to do it. You might as well do it the right way. And just, you know, make sure everybody knows that they're doing it. So they're trying to do this Edge and Lita thing. It's not really going to work out because I don't think they have the balls to turn Tay Conti into what Lita was. And that's really what made it work. Is people believing that Lita was a home wrecker, and they leaned into it. That Edge and Lita were home wreckers and all this kind of stuff. Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti is not going to play into that. You know, they're just going to be like, you're jealous, you're jealous, look at us, we're in love. And everybody's going to be like, boo, why Tay, why, what happened to Pam? Bring back Pam. Pam's the victim. Instead of, you know, being a vixen, you know, which is what I think Tay should be. She shouldn't even be trying to be in a mixed tag match with Paige Van Zandt. She should be a coward. She should be like, you know what? I wanted to fight Paige Van Zandt. She didn't want to fight me. So fuck her. I don't want to fight her now. And now Paige Van Zandt wants to fight and Ty like, no, I don't want to fight. That was then. This is now. You know, fuck that Brazilian jiu-jitsu shit. That shit not gonna get no heat. You get heat by being a coward, not by I'm gonna stand toe to toe and test my Brazilian judo versus her mixed martial arts. Like, no, nobody cares about that. You're a hot model chick. Feed into the perception. You know, I think that's the better way to do things. Also, before we leave, we were told that CM Punk had a special guest of some sort that was supposed to come out there, and I did not see a special guest, unless I'm wrong, or was that somebody else for some other thing? Because I saw a door that says special guest on it, CM Punk's special guest or something like that, and a lot of people thought it was going to be Bret Hart or somebody like that, and nobody came. Nothing happened. Did we get any explanation on this? Because maybe you know something happened on Twitter and I don't know. Whatever. If not, it wouldn't be the first time or the last time a wrestling company promoted something that didn't happen. So overall, Dustin and CM Punk was okay. The MJF segments, MJF is really good at what he does, but I just can't find it in my heart to care anymore about, you know, him hiring people to do his bidding, because they've been doing it for 3 years now. Every MJF feud is pretty much the same. And the Undisputed Elite are a complete waste of time. They've taken the tarnish out of all of their new signings. Jeff, Danielson, Punk is the only one that's maintaining any relevance. And that's only because, you know, he's the biggest internet star of them all. Everybody else, we're going to throw you on Dark. We're going to throw you on Elevation. We're going to put you in tag team matches and 6-man tags. And you're going to be standing around a bunch of other guys. And, you know, just not anything special is going to occur with you. And Hangman Page sucks. Jungle Boy is not bad. He's just undersized. Luchasaurus, trash. Red Velvet and Jade Cargill, I don't understand. It's like the Road Runner and Wile E. Coyote automatically just being friends and without any explanation whatsoever. Like, I don't get it. Somebody got to make it make sense. And somebody tell Malachi Black to stop cutting fucking promos on people who are not on TV. If you're gonna feud with Fuego del Sol, I don't have a problem with that. Put your promo up on Twitter. Let's save that 40 seconds or whatever to somebody who might actually get over. Somebody who might actually need to talk. Like Toni Storm, for instance. Who would have been nice if she'd have cut a promo or something on this show. Would have been nice. You know, for no other reason than she hasn't said anything about herself. Or talked about anything. Or let anybody know anything about her since she came back. And she's been on this show for a month now. It's been at least 3 weeks. Why would you be on this show 3 weeks and not cut a promo of any kind? Even a short one that says, "Hi, I'm Toni Storm and I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum." Nothing. Like, she's getting the EC3 treatment. Like when WWE just made EC3 tip his cap or lift his glass and he's not allowed to talk. Like, why is Toni Storm not allowed to talk? Why she can't talk about herself and put herself over? Where did Hobbs and Lee and all those guys go? Where did they go? There was no time for them this week? We had time for Brock Anderson, though? I'm just messing around. Look, it is what it is. But Dynamite is always painfully mediocre. It's just blandly competent at most, half the time. You know, they keep promoting these huge surprises that never really pan out. Either they just, you know, tickling the taint of the marks, or they're making me roll my eyes at something that, you know, is a big deal to a very small subsection of the population. And that's basically what this announcement was. But let me know what you guys think, because your opinions matter. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.